I always say there's kind of three ways you can get a mini retirement. You can negotiate time off from your employer. You can take one in between jobs, or something unexpected might happen. And if you have a mini retirement go bag planned, like if you've set aside some money, if you have a couple plans, you can maybe quickly pivot and take that opportunity. And that's what my first one was. It was one of those unplanned kind of mini retirement go bags. And my best friend at the time, we loaded up into my green Honda Civic and did a month-long road trip, DC to Seattle and back. Before, you could work for one company for 30 or 40 years and live a really comfortable life and have a really comfortable retirement. And that's less true in today's economy. For most young people, especially in their 20s and 30s, but even 40s, switching careers, switching jobs, employers is your best chance at getting a significant raise. It's really tough to get a 10 or 20% raise staying at your current employer. So building mini retirements in every 3 or 4 years and planning to take a month or 3 months off in between jobs can actually massively increase your lifetime earning potential.
We're looking at a dramatic change in work culture in our country. And it's going to start from a grassroots standpoint, as you say, where individuals come to their companies and show the companies that it's possible. Other work culture things we could do is like the 4-day work week. Take a Wednesday off, take a Friday off, a 3-day weekend. And it doesn't necessarily hamper productivity according to the studies. And it's not work more, create more. It's work more efficiently and relax more efficiently too, and more thoroughly. We aren't used to this in creating goals for a mini retirement. Welcome to Catching Up to Fi, a podcast on mindset, money, and life for late starters of any age on their journey to financial independence. I'm Bill, and I'm a late starter.
I'm Jackie, and I'm also a late starter, and we're your host. We're here to help you on your journey to financial independence, no matter where you're starting.
We're going to talk to experts, other late starters, and explore topics related to our mission.
Join us as we catch up to Fi together.
Hello, and welcome back to Catching Up to Fi. As always, I'm Bill Yount with my co-host, Jackie Cummins-Koski. And today we have a repeat guest, Jillian Johnsrud. And before we get started, I want to give a shout out to her favorite charity, of which she's a board member. So it's called The Hope Effect. And Jillian, before we get into your intro, can you tell us a little bit about the Hope Effect?
Yeah, so their mission is really to transform orphan care around the world. In a lot of, especially developing countries, they still use an orphanage system. And research, science has shown that kids do best growing up in families. Growing up in a home environment creates massively better outcomes for them as adults. And so that's kind of the Hope Effect's mission, is to work alongside the local governments to create this entirely new infrastructure to where kids can grow up in homes instead of orphanages.
Well, that's important to you, I guess, because you have adopted kids as well in your large family of 5 kids. And we'll probably talk about that a little bit with regards to mini retirements. Jackie, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. So excited to have Jillian here. We connected 5 years ago when we both were speakers at the inaugural economy in Cincinnati. So that's our bond. And you met her there as well, Bill, right?
That's correct. And I'll tell you all about it because Jillian Johnsrud never expected to be able to retire early. So she hatched a plan to retire often. And that's cool because it's really not a part of our culture. Inspired by the idea of sabbatical years, she set out to sprinkle retirements throughout her and Adam's working lives. At 40, they've taken over a dozen mini retirements. These allowed them to pursue dreams like living abroad, traveling to 27 countries, oh my God, adopting 4 kids plus 2 biological kids, investing in real estate, and touring the U.S. in a camper with these 5 kids. Jillian has taught, coached, and wrote about mini retirements for almost a decade. She is an expert. She hosts the Retire Often podcast and is a popular speaker and consultant for mini retirements. She lives in Montana, where she spends time in the garden drinking tea. And I believe she created this garden during one of her mini retirements that we'll hear about. I first met Jillian at FinCon years ago. She is tall, statuesque, and unmistakable. She claims to be an introvert, I think, but I experienced her as a gregarious, outgoing, caring, and empathic person. She had granola bars and throat lozenges for all that forgot to eat or lost their voice at FinCon. She has chatted with us before on episode 43, Retire Often. She now has a new book coming out on September 9th of this year, Retire Often: How Anyone Can Take Multiple Career Breaks to Unlock Adventure, Advance Their Career, and Find Financial Freedom. So, Jillian, welcome back to Catching Up to Fi.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so glad to have you today because honestly, you're introducing new language to me with the mini retirements. So start us off by telling us what a mini retirement is.
So I define mini retirements by having 3 characteristics. The first one is that it's a month or longer. I find the month is kind of the minimum effective dose. The second one, you're stepping away from your primary career. So not necessarily doing nothing, but not doing what you normally do to make money, getting a break from that. And the third is to focus on something that's meaningful to you. And if you hit all 3 of those, I think that's a great mini retirement.
Well, I love that. As I think about like certain times in my life that absolutely could have been something I would have gotten a lot of value from, but I just never knew that that existed. So you obviously stumbled upon this through your own experiences. I find it kind of difficult, or I've always had it in my head, the difficult to do with kids and a big family, but you did. Tell us about your family makeup. And I guess the first time you encountered this opportunity to do a mini retirement.
So my family makeup at the moment, me and my ex, we have 5 kiddos at home. I think they're 9 through 17 now. I first kind of stumbled upon this. The idea, the very first year that my ex and I were married, I was 19, and I came across this idea, and it just, I don't know, every once in a while you hear something that like instantly resonates with you. It was instantly exciting and intriguing, and just, it felt like it was filled with possibility of what if we could step away from our career? Because I had all of these young and full of enthusiasm and optimism. I had all these goals and these dreams, but we weren't going into high earning careers and we had a lot of debt. My first massively ambitious goal for financial independence was by the time I was 60. That was like, oh my gosh, if we could do that. And that felt like so outlandish and unrealistic, but that was kind of the first benchmark I was hoping to hit. So these mini retirements were really an opportunity to pursue those other things that I was interested in during my working career. I always say there's kind of 3 ways you can get a mini retirement. You can negotiate time off from your employer. You can take one in between jobs, or something unexpected might happen. And if you have a mini retirement go bag planned, like if you've set aside some money, if you have a couple plans, you can maybe quickly pivot and take that opportunity. And that's what my first one was. It was one of those unplanned kind of mini retirement go bags. And my best friend at the time, we loaded up into my green Honda Civic and did a month-long road trip, DC to Seattle and back. And like we stepped on friends' couches, we camped, we had our tent collapsed in the snow, we almost got trampled by bison. Like it was an amazing trip for my 20s, but that was the first one.
Well, what's interesting to me about this is our work culture does not incorporate this, especially in America. Are we looking at the death of the traditional career path? We have these 50 weeks of work, 2 weeks of vacation and federal holidays. Other countries, other cultures have a really different approach to this. Why do we have this work till we die kind of mentality? And how do we create this both from a systemic way and a personal way?
Yeah, I think a number of things have shifted in the economy and the work culture that makes that old model not work as well as it used to. Because before you could work for one company for 30 or 40 years and live a really comfortable life and have a really comfortable retirement. And that's less true in today's economy. For most young people, especially in their 20s and 30s, but even 40s, switching careers, switching jobs, employers is your best chance at getting a significant raise. It's really tough to get a 10 or 20% raise staying at your current employer. So building mini retirements in every 3 or 4 years and planning to take a month or 3 months off in between jobs can actually massively increase your lifetime earning potential. But another shift that I think people don't realize, but I felt a lot being a teenager in the 90s, my parents came home from work and they were just home. It was done. There was no email. There was no internet. No one called. They didn't bring home papers. There was no expectation of working on their days off. When we went on vacation, no one called. No one emailed. Like, when you were off of work, you really could disconnect and be present. And that is massively eroded over time to where work feels ever present. And the only way to get that same kind of disconnection that we had in the 80s and 90s is to really step away and create that boundary.
I think you make such a good point there, because I remember when I retired and my scope of awareness was just either work or retire, right? So when I was ready to retire, a lot of other people in my group, they were actually going to other jobs. To your point, nobody works 40 years. You work 3 or 4 years. And if you want the big raises, you got to go to another job. That's today's reality. And if I would have taken that seriously, that would have been a great time for me to take a mini retirement and then continue on. Maybe I would have retired a little bit later, but the way the working world is today is much more feasible than what it used to be. But I'm curious about, I feel like this might have been my issue too. I'm thinking about the money part, whether it was real or not. So how do people balance feeling stressed because they're taking time off and they're spending money and not making money versus giving themselves the grace to refocus or to take that time off as a mini retirement?
I think it's a challenge whether you're taking a mini retirement or you're fully retiring. You're going to be earning less money and perhaps spending more money. And I always tell people, like, if you're scared to do that for a month, why do you think 30 years is going to be less scary? Like, if you're scared to go for a walk for half an hour from your house, what do you think a marathon's going to be? So mini retirements kind of give us just a little taste of like dealing with some of that fear, dealing with some of that doubt, figuring out my finances work, and I can budget and I can figure this out when I'm not working. And it gives us the practice so that when we go into full retirement, we have a couple reps under our belt. Like, we've worked out some of the kinks and we know how good it can be. And we have the motivation to not get stuck in the 1 more year syndrome.
That comes up a lot. I think I had the 1 more year syndrome.
Oh, I have the 3 more year syndrome. And it's difficult for me to do this. And we'll get into that. I'm just going to remind folks that outside of the US, the European Union mandates 4 weeks of paid time off. In Germany, they have something called a Kur, where insurance pays for you to go on a health retreat. We don't build these things in. Are there some companies in the corporate world or otherwise that really build this into their model so that they can, say, prevent burnout among their employees and have good retention?
Yeah, hundreds of them. Like, if you do a Google search, it's becoming more and more popular. I would say that the downside I still see in a lot of sabbatical programs is that it's after 7 years or 5 years or 3 years. From where I'm sitting, I don't think the frequency is quite optimal yet, but it's a good starting point. And it can have so many benefits for the company, but also for the employees. In the book, I have a very short little chapter on this crazy idea of like, what if every company, or what if a company mandated every single employee take a month off every single year? Very practically, what would that look like in terms of employment, in terms of performance, in terms of retention, productivity? What if we reimagined how our working lives could look and what work-life balance could be? And hopefully I make a compelling enough case that more companies will see this is actually a small cost for an enormous upside.
Yeah, it's like building a little bit of redundancy into the workplace so that you're not so crucial to a task and somebody can step into your role and you can free your mind of that and know that the work is still getting done. You talk about 3 steps with regards to a mini retirement in 3 sections of your book. And the first one is designing it. The first question you ask is, what do people use them for?
I love mini retirements because they're kind of like a Swiss Army knife. Like, they're a tool with many different functions. And so I always encourage people to think about like what feels really urgent right now. And what feels really important, kind of where does that Venn diagram cross over? I would say typically right now, especially in the US, burnout. I just saw a new study by Forbes that said 66% of Americans are burnt out. And it's like, it's massive and it's widespread. And honestly, in our economy, in our work culture, we don't have a solution for it. We don't have oh, here's how you fix this. It's such a tricky, well, not tricky. It's tricky to do when you're in the environment. I kind of compare it to like, if your house has mold, can you recover from that while still living there? Maybe. Like you can open some windows, improve ventilation, but it's probably easier if you leave for a while, get some fresh air, and then come back and deal with the task. So burnout's huge. And there's a lot of things that like simply don't fit into nights and weekends. If you want to hike the Camino, you're not doing that over a 4-day weekend. If you want to do a road trip with your kids to 10 national parks, that's not a 4-day weekend. If you want to do some of these bigger goals, bigger dreams, you just need more time. So I think that's another really frequent motivation. Those big goals, those time with the people we love, we care about. And I almost think about it like a capital investment, like in a business. You make a big financial or infrastructure investment up front, and then that continues to pay you dividends for years down the road. But we can do the same for ourselves. We can make a capital investment in our relationships, in our health, in our mental health, in our hobbies, that we can continue to reap the benefits of that for decades to come.
I definitely love that language. I just thought a lot about this over the years. It's like, why isn't retirement in the middle? But in your case, there's a lot of little middles, right, with the mini retirement. And I'm just glad that we are now using this language that we don't have to run the marathon without making some stops for our own good, our own health, like you were saying. And I'm even thinking for some people, they may even be doing a career change and then they're taking a little time off in between. I guess there's so many options to consider that it can help you not feel like you need to retire from something. You're building what you actually love to do.
Now, we're looking at a dramatic change in work culture in our country. And it's going to start from a grassroots standpoint, as you say, where individuals come to their companies and show the companies that it's possible. Other work culture things we could do is like the 4-day work week. Take a Wednesday off, take a Friday off, a 3-day weekend. And it doesn't necessarily hamper productivity, according to the studies. And it's not work more, create more. It's work more efficiently and relax more efficiently too, and more thoroughly. We aren't used to this in creating goals for a mini retirement. I get lost. There's no structure. How am I going to not hang around and watch Netflix? And you talk about 3 things to help narrow your focus.
There can be a tendency to want to do 87 different things. And the reason I called the book Retire Often instead of do one massive epic mini retirement in the middle of your career is that you don't have to do everything in this first one. Make it a plan, build it in to retire often so each mini retirement can be unique and can be focused and serve specific purposes. So I try to encourage people to pick at most 3 things, like 3 main goals, 3 main intentions, and then to set it up kind of in phases. Don't even try to do all 3 at the same moment in the same day, because sometimes those 3 can be counterproductive to each other. Someone said, I really want to recover from burnout. I want to do like a massive trip through Europe and I want to start a business. It's really tough to do all 3 of those things on the same day. But if you took a month to recover from burnout and then you traveled for 2 months in Europe and then you came home and focused on your business, having that focus and intention for each goal individually, it makes it much more satisfying, much less stressful, and a lot more productive.
I always end up getting back to the money stuff. I guess I kind of want to remove that as a roadblock for a lot of people because they do tend to want to anchor to the money. What are some of the practical things? Everything from talking to your boss, stepping away from the job, to building up your budget and building things up to where you can walk away in peace and know that you've properly planned for this.
So a couple things on the budget side. I encourage people to, at most, keep whatever their additional spending for their mini retirement to be at 50% of that take-home pay for the month. So if you bring $5,000 home a month, spend more than an additional $2,500. And if you're kind of, especially for your audience, if you're a little bit in the more beginning side of your financial journey or towards the middle, think through all of the things on your bucket list. What are the things that require a high degree of capability, physical, mental capability, and are low cost? And front load those high capability ones while you're able to do them, and front load the low cost ones. That sequence of returns makes a massive difference in your financial trajectory. So start with the mini retirement. Like I took a month off last year to learn Tango. 1 month, I gave myself a $1,000 budget and had an amazing time. And now like I'm absolutely obsessed with Tango. I love it so much. So I have this hobby, capital investment, that I can do until I'm 80. But front load those ones, like the around the world cruise that's $45,000, save that for when you're 80. 80-year-olds love to go on cruises, and you might have enough cash when you're 80 to afford that. So thinking through which ones are the most affordable and starting there, they don't have to be expensive. I think there's this incorrect assumption that if I'm going to take a mini retirement, it's tens of thousands of dollars. It can be $1,000. It can be $5,000. And if you are kind of starting late and you're looking at, I might be working till 60, 65, 75, it gives you the opportunity to do the things that you're capable of doing now that you might not be capable of doing at 75. Like I met a couple, we were on a 10-week road trip. It was towards the end and I met them, I think in Oregon, Washington. They were just starting to hike the Pacific Crest Trail and they were in their early 60s. And they were like, yep, we took 6 months off of work. We have to do it now. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, how's it going? Like, this is so exciting. And they're like, honestly, we don't know if we can do it. Like, it's a very difficult through hike. But they said, if we wait 5 or 6 more years until we're retired, we're not going to be more capable. We don't have a better chance of being able to finish this hike in 6 years. Like, we either give it our best now or just kind of admit that, like, we missed the boat on it.
I completely resonate with that. I was recently out west with my son and his girlfriend and my wife. And one of my dream bucket lists was to go to Zion National Park. And one of my dreams was to get most of the way up the Angel Trail, so to speak, one of these iconic hikes in life with Walter's Wiggles leading you up to the base of it. I was sitting there putting one foot in front of the other with a Kaizen principle of 1% better as we go along. I can get fitter, but I'm here now. And I think I have the capability now, if I just put one foot in front of the other, to get to the precipice of the Bright Angel or whatever Angel Trail it is, Angel's Landing. And I did it with my son. My wife decided not to go all the way up, but I may never be back. This was my chance. As you say, this was my season of life. I may not be back. I may not be able to do it again. And now I can say, yes, I got to the mountaintop, right?
Yeah, and that's got to be one of the biggest reasons, the fact that we are not able to do certain things when we are in our 70s and 80s that we can do now. And I think a big answer to that is, what about mini retirement? When someone has a job, what are some tips on how they can possibly get some kind of agreement with their boss? That's only one scenario. You talked about a couple more, but let's start with that one. The only industry I had ever known that did sabbaticals was like university professors and in the education system. So a lot of people, this might be kind of new to them.
Because I've worked with one-on-one clients, group coaching, a lot of people are very skeptical of their ability to negotiate this time off because almost no one does it. They've never done it. Like their friends and family haven't done it. So they don't really see how it's possible or necessarily have kind of the formula to give them the best chance for a good outcome. I always encourage people, one, start with like a short time period. A month is great. 6 weeks is great. Up to 3 months. Partly because from an HR standpoint, most companies are set up for people to have up to 3 months of unpaid leave off. So they kind of like with insurance and benefits, like on the back end, they know the logistics of that. If you want 6 months off or 12 months off, I would probably consider separating and then maybe getting rehired by the company later is probably your best bet. So first pick that time period and then crafting the story of how are you going to pitch this? What's the narrative? Because you want to set the tone of this. And there's kind of 4 elements when people are putting this story together that I encourage to incorporate as many as possible. The first one, to make it positive. Even if it's a challenging thing that you're dealing with, find the positive outlook in it. The second is to pick something that's interesting. The third, pick something that's specific. And I'll get into more detail of that one. And then fourth, find something that's ideally a one-time thing. So it's one thing to say, oh, like I kind of burned out. I need to like go and rest and maybe I'll feel better and come back to work. Not super positive, interesting, specific, or necessarily even a one-time thing. But because we talked about like the Camino, if you said, hey, I've always had this dream, I've wanted to do this hike. I'm getting a little older. I feel like my 45th birthday's coming up. Like now's the perfect time to do this. My mom is still young enough to do this hike with me. So I need 6 weeks off to do a little bit of training and 4 weeks for the hike. Here's what we're going to do. And then I'm going to come back and it's going to be amazing. That tends to be a one-time thing. People don't hike the Camino every year. It's very specific. You're doing a specific hike versus saying, yeah, I think I want to like get in shape or I want to exercise more. I want to have some quality time with my mom. Like those are cool, but not specific. So adding that specificity and then just finding something that's positive and interesting and compelling that kind of resonates with another person. So coming up with that story, but then your job as an employer, because don't put this on your employer. Don't just be like, here's a new problem you have to solve because their plate is full. They're busy. Like they don't have time for extra problems. Do as much of the kind of a mental and emotional labor of anticipating how is this going to work? What are the logistics? What are the challenges? And bring a plan to them that makes you taking this time off easiest, cheapest, simplest solution. Especially if you're willing to leave, if you are willing to have that leverage of leaving, because now they're choosing between two different problems. The problem that you've made very easy, cheap, and simple, or the difficult problem of replacing you.
Now, are there any stories, just to give our audience a specific idea of negotiations that you participated in that were successful and illustrate the possibility here?
Yeah. I would say it's probably, at least like in my one-on-one work, I would say about 70-80% of the time, to include people that are like absolutely not in my company. Never. Like my company's not set up for that. I work in a government job or I work in this corporation or like I work in this kind of system and like nobody can get time off. A funny one for, and maybe this isn't the greatest example because it's just what I said not to do, but someone went in who was a physician. I was like, listen, I'm massively burned out. I need a year off. Like I'm sorry, I have to leave. And they were like, no. How about you take the year off? Will you just come back? Will you come back? Like, please, like after you're done, like, will you come back? And so it was cool for her because it kind of guaranteed her job, which can be a little bit stressful, but she got it exactly what she wanted. I had another client and this was funny. It ended up being a mini retirement negotiation, but I always encourage, even if you're planning to leave the company, to do an exit negotiation, to negotiate things on your way out. So she had told me up front, there's absolutely no way they will give me a mini retirement. Like I've taken like 3 maternity leaves over the last 3 years. They're super put out with me. Like they're not feeling generous. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So we negotiated her exit. And I said, okay, this is cool. But when you negotiate this exit, I also want you to ask for a raise, like a 20% raise. And she was like, wait, what? Like I'm like on the day I'm quitting, I'm also asking for a raise. And I'm like, yep. Okay, here's how we're going to do this. So she said, I'm willing to stay. Here's what she was willing to offer. I'm willing to stay for 4 months. I'm willing to find a replacement, willing to get through this busy season. And then the magic words, in return, I would appreciate to be fairly compensated for my remaining time here. Here's the market rate for my job. How does this sound? And they were like, yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Let's do this. But in the book, I encourage people like once you're the exception to like one rule, sometimes it's much easier to be the exception to other rules. So her employer knew that she had all these plans over the summer. And as they got closer to that 4 months, they were like, okay, I know you have all these plans, but like, what if you came back in the fall? Would you come back? And she was so smart and so clever. She was like, I would consider that. I'm probably going to need every summer off, though.
I love it.
What's interesting here is it costs a lot of money to hire a new employee and to retain a new employee. It's a lot of effort, time, and money to do so. And that's some of your leverage to do this. I don't want to leave, and you don't necessarily have to hire somebody else. This is my plan for covering my position while I'm gone, and then I'll hit the ground running when I come back, right?
Yep, absolutely. Your mini retirement is the easiest, cheapest, simplest solution because at the end of the day, HR, bosses, they're just people, and people like to do the easiest, cheapest, simplest thing when they have one of two choices.
Yeah, I think doing a little bit of homework goes a long way. So I love that scenario there. Was that with one of your clients, or that's pretty good? That was awesome. I love that. So obviously not everyone is at a job where it's even negotiable if you're doing blue collar work or Bill's raising his hand. He's one of those. So the other circumstance that you talk about a lot when many retirements come up is in between jobs. So take us through that and give us some tips on how to maneuver that situation.
So like I described, I would, if possible, I would do an exit negotiation. And so even if you're like, I will get nothing. For context, I've seen people get raises. I've seen people be able to work from home more during the last month or 2 or 4 months or 6 months. Sometimes people give a long notice. I've seen people get like a 4-day work week. I've seen them get fully vested ahead of schedule. I've seen their bonuses get paid out. Like there's a number of different things that come behind that. In return, you're going to do all these things. You would appreciate maybe a couple of these other things. So definitely do an exit negotiation, but I would also start networking right away. And that's as simple as, hey, everyone, maybe this is an email, maybe this is on LinkedIn, wherever. I'm off to do this cool adventure. I love this industry. I've loved our professional connection. I'm really excited to come back. I'll be back probably in 6 to 12 months. If you happen to hear of anything in the meantime that's like a perfect fit, feel free to reach out. Always happy to entertain those ideas. And just putting it out there kind of in the universe, because especially in countries that have like a strong work culture, there's a little bit of obsession with other people being employed. Like just you being unemployed and out there hiking through Southeast Asia or at a yoga retreat or like building a Habitat for Humanity house or like whatever you're doing creates a little bit of discontentment, a little bit of irritation for everyone. And they just want to fix this problem. Like they just want to get you back employed. So that can help people get really interesting, great job offers while they're unemployed. And for a lot of people I've worked with, and my ex experienced this as well, they might never get recruited while they're at their employer. And then soon as they're unemployed, everyone comes out of the woodwork of like, oh, our company, we're hiring this, or have you considered this place? So take advantage of that. Those 4 points that we made for crafting that story. You're also going to want to craft that story for when you interview with potential employers. Here was the thing I did that was positive, interesting, specific, and a one-time event. Here's how it was awesome. Super excited to be back into my career.
Yeah, I think my mini retirement is 4 years, 4 or 5 years, or however long it's been so far. But yes, it's been very interesting. And I can't see myself going back to a full-time role. But if I did, I do have that story and some of the things that I've done that hopefully help develop me even better for this role. So I actually have a friend that's done that right now. So left a company. I'm not sure about the separation circumstances, but he did post on LinkedIn. And he said what he did and everything. And of course, I was amazed at how many shares he got from his friends. Like it's in technology, so I have no idea. And I said, this is the best technology director you can ever have. And it's been going really great, but that's a really good one. I think he has some mental blocks with taking a mini retirement. So I'm taking a lot of this for food for thought, and I'll be sure to share it with him to try to enjoy this transition. So would it be similar, Jillian, if someone got laid off? I'm thinking a lot about the federal government workers, where so many of them recently has been laid off with very little notice. And it's just a shaky time right now. And there's layoffs happening all the time. So when there's a layoff, is there anything different people should think about?
Yes, That's why I talk about, like, that's the third option, like something unexpected happens, and usually bad unexpected, and having that mini retirement go bag, which is essentially having some cash set aside. Doesn't have to be a tremendous amount. Like I said, these don't have to be super expensive, but also having some plans, having done the mental, emotional, like logistical work of, honestly, even if people had like, what are 4 ideas that would take 4 weeks that you could do at different parts of the year? So if it's like, I would buy a ski pass and ski every day. Okay, that's cool if like you get laid off in the winter, but what if it's July? So having a few different ones that could fit different scenarios, because when you deal with that surprising, usually unpleasant thing, it's really tough to emotionally pivot. It's really tough to go from I'm angry and scared and confused and frustrated and overwhelmed to like, hey, epic vacation mode. Like now I get to do this thing I always wanted to do. So the more prepared that you are, the quicker people can make kind of that emotional pivot and really lean into the opportunity, which is why like that third definition of a mini retirement is to focus on something that is meaningful and that matters to you. Because it's real easy to sit around and eat junk food and watch Netflix and be grumpy about this time off and it just be kind of a miserable month off. And I feel like, especially with modern hiring practices, it can be a process. Like you might do 3 or 4 rounds of interviews, like even from the time you apply to a job to the time you start a job could be a month if you get the very first job you apply for. So you might have 4 weeks, 8 weeks, even if you're actively pursuing employment, that you're going to be unemployed, and you might as well do something awesome during that time.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because there should be a chapter of mini retirements in every personal finance book. Honestly, it's not there. It's not pervasive. It's not part of the American mindset. And you break it down into these steps. And one of the big barriers is the finances. And if you pre-plan this, like you have a sinking fund bucket for travel and vacations, but those are short-term things. What about the mini retirement bucket? And you talk about a 6.5% rule. Can you tell me about that?
So this is the idea of what if a person decided to truly retire often and they said, you know what, every other year, I'm going to take a month off. And we go by this rule of you need to cover your whole living expense plus that extra 50% for whatever cool thing you're going to do. How much do you have to save? And it's 6.5% additional to be able to take a month off every other year throughout your entire working career. And in the book, I highlight like cool things that you could do in a month, whether that's going to Mexico to learn Spanish or doing a big road trip or learning how to cook pasta in Italy. Like there's all these amazing things that you could accomplish in a month off. And so for a lot of people, an extra 6.5% isn't a tremendous amount of money because this is proportional to your income. So if you're bringing home $10,000 a month, that's $650. If you're bringing home $5,000 a month, it's a couple $100. And it's not delayed enjoyment for like a long period of time. It's not like skip Chipotle lunch every Friday and in 40 years, like you can go to Mexico. Skip the bad tacos now because next year you're going to be in Mexico eating street tacos on the beach. You're just pushing that joy and that meaningful experience until next year.
One of the hacks you talk about is renting out your own home while you're on a mini retirement to cover at least those costs, especially if you have a mortgage, even some of the costs of the mini retirement. And for people that have rental real estate, they just got to funnel that cash flow into their mini retirement plus the savings they might have, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This 6.5% is honestly like worst case scenario. That's like the absolute most you would have to save because there's so many different levers that you can pull to make it more affordable, to increase your cash flow. And yeah, even if you don't have rentals, just renting out your place while you're gone. For some people, that covers a huge portion of their mini retirement in and of itself, or it reduces their expenses massively. So they have a lot less money to save. And for the bigger mini retirements, sometimes people don't factor in how much more affordable the mini retirement might be than their everyday life. I interviewed on my podcast a couple. They lived in the Boston area. They had 2 kids in daycare. So they spent like 40 grand a year on daycare. They moved to France for a year and spent 40 grand. Just their daycare cost covered every living expense that they had in France for a year. That additional 50% wasn't at all true for them. They weren't spending $120,000 or $150,000 a year in France. They were spending like less than half of what they spent at home.
Another barrier that people talk about is kids. How do you manage that? How do you manage education? Now, you've done this this a lot. How did you manage those problems? Kids can be a barrier, maybe less so under the high school ages with homeschooling and all those other things out there, world schooling, but high school probably is a different animal. Is there any other hacks that you can think of that would encourage people to say, yes, I can do this too?
Honestly, I think the biggest hack is start with a month, because everything in life that we've never done is hard the first time, and we're not awesome at it the first time, and it's a little uncomfortable or scary the first time. So start with something that's small and affordable and manageable. You can negotiate it off. It's not going to be massively expensive, because then you develop that confidence and that clarity, and you get through the learning curve a little bit, and then you can scale it up and go a little bit bigger next time. But as far as schooling, so when with kids, honestly, I think 2 to 12 is kind of the magic age for long-term traveling with kids. Not that it's perfect. There's no perfect age. I've traveled my kids at every single age, like 0 to 20. So there's no perfect age, but the schooling aspect is super easy. When we traveled, we did tons of museums and zoos and historic sites and all these educational things. Then we just threw in like some math problems and reading and writing, and it was pretty easy to navigate. But it's also an age where like they're super excited to spend time with you, and they are having so much fun with the things that you're doing, and everything feels magical and cool and awesome. Junior high, the credits, the school side isn't as difficult, but it's a gamble. It's a gamble with how excited they are to spend time with you. They start to get a little hormonal. It's a gamble of how much they're going to miss their friends. How much are they going to miss their extracurricular? Like, how good of a mood are they going to be on any given day? I've got 2 kids in junior high, and I never know who is walking through my door after school. Sometimes delightful angels, sometimes grumpy little demons. It might be awesome. Your 12-year-old might love traveling with you, or they might have some big feelings that come out in inopportune times. But leaning into that season, and I like traveling with my high school kids. I like traveling with my junior high kids. When they're adults, I'll enjoy traveling with them too, but take advantage of every season you have with your kids and lean into that as fully as you can. Same with your siblings, same with your parents. I'm 42, my mom's 60. We have this amazing window for like the next 10 years. And then you don't know, like maybe she'll be in even better shape and even better health when she's 70 versus when she's 60. But you start to kind of roll the dice on that stuff.
I wouldn't call it a mini retirement, but we had a sudden healthcare emergency in the family, and my wife had to go care for her mother who had a healthcare emergency. And given the structure of her job, she was able to have a go bag and go up there and do that. It was only 2 weeks, but it could have been a month till things had been resolved. And there's going to be organizing the affairs of your parents when they pass away. There are going to be these known opportunities and the unknown, unexpected opportunities where you have to pre-plan for that. Your financial go bag, your physical go bag. It may not be that you're going to focus on yourself or a project, heck, your own education, for example. I can think of an example where you take 3 months and you tell your work, I'm going to do this certificate because I'm excited about the education. You're going to pay for it. And then I come back to work.
Well, I think the whole kid thing, I do think about all those years when my daughter was younger. Those are some amazing times. And if I had any regrets in life, it would be that I wish I didn't have to work so much when she was younger, because those were some amazing times. Now she's an adult, she has her own life and things like that. So it's not quite the same, but that is yet another reason to really think about these mini retirements. And it's like getting small wins. Instead of waiting for the big pot of gold at the end, what about these nice little gold coins along the way? It's just a better way to look at it. A lot of young people that I talk to, and I felt this way too. When I was saving for retirement, it didn't even seem like my money because I wasn't going to get the reward for so long, for decades. And if I would have thought, hey, maybe after 5 or 10 years, I can take a career transition, or I can spend extra time in between jobs and actually take time off or whatever, whether I initiate that or if it happens to me. And just to frame it, you have one of the kindest, friendliest voices. So I can imagine you with your clients helping them talk through it, and just talking through it. It's almost like there's an answer to every question, and it is doable. Looking at it far away, it seems like, oh my God, I can never do that. And you have talked through so many things that are like, well, here's how you can work through that. A great therapist, like you've got that calming voice. I love it. I guess another sort of logistical thing, and I guess broadly, what are the booby traps that people need to look out for, or things that they need to make sure is not in their blind spot as they plan for this? One of the first things that came to mind was health insurance, but I know that there are others, but let's start with health insurance and tell us about anything else that you want to be sure to look out for as you are planning your first mini retirement.
Health insurance is an interesting one in the US because it creates so much anxiety, so much uncertainty. There's so many emotions around it that when I talk to people from other countries, they have a much more neutral view. They're like, oh yeah, no, I do this and fill out that form and then I pay this amount of money. And it's just like another bill or another form that they deal with. We have all of these big feelings about it. And so I always encourage people in the book, I outlined like, here's like 9 different options. There are options out there. And what people really need to do is just take the hour, 2 hours, 3 hours and investigate exactly what your options are. Because most of that fear and insecurity comes from not really understanding what the options are or how much that's going to cost. And I also find in the US, it feels really bad to pay for healthcare. Like it feels like the worst bill. And so when people are taking mini retirements, I encourage them like, it's just a bill like every other bill. It's not an emotionally loaded amount of money. It's just an amount of money. So if you're going to take 3 months off and let's say you're going to do COBRA and your full COBRA payment is $1,000 a month and you're used to only paying $300, but now you're going to be paying $1,000, you're paying $3,000. It's $3,000. Your plane tickets might be $3,000. Your lodging might be $3,000. Like other parts of this are also going to cost money, and this is just another cost. Is $3,000 for healthcare worth this epic thing that you have planned? When you're 60, 70, 80, will you be mad that you spent that $3,000 on healthcare? Or will you be like, it was just money? Like it was just like my car payments money, just like my house payments money. It was just money that I spent. So there has to be a little bit of mindset work around paying money for healthcare. But it's funny, the whole 4th step in the book is navigating the journey and kind of all the ways it goes wrong and all the ways it goes right. And when people come to me with their concerns about many retirements, it's healthcare, employment, and money. Those are the things they're nervous about. And I don't know if I just have like a biased group of people I work with. That's never actually the stuff that goes wrong. Like those are always like the simplest things to figure out. Those always go pretty darn smooth. It's everything else that goes wrong that they're not expecting and creates unnecessary emotional suffering. Emotional suffering that just doesn't have to be there. One of them that's really common is if people are burned out, they have an idea of what recovering for burnout will look like and how long it will take. And it is not what they think it will be because they've never done it before. Like, they don't know what it's like. And so it takes longer than they think it will take, or it feels more intense than they think it will feel. They think recovering from burnout's going to like feel awesome and fun and like they're just going to do yoga every day. And for some people, if they're deeply burned out, feels like they're recovering from the flu, or it feels like they're recovering from surgery. It's this intense tiredness. It's this intense decrease in motivation, this intense sleeping more. And people start to internalize, actually, maybe this means something about me. Maybe this means that I'm lazy or I'm undisciplined or I'm unmotivated or I can't structure my life. Maybe this means like I can't function outside of a job. Maybe I'm only productive and happy if I'm working. Maybe like all of my source of purpose is in my work, and they start creating this like unhinged narrative. And I'm just like, whoa, 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 whoa. If you were recovering from the flu and you were tired, you wouldn't be like, maybe I'm a horrible person. You would be like, or maybe I'm just recovering from the flu. And once I get better, I will feel like myself again. So I always encourage people like that little bit of mindset work of if you get into this and you're like, wow, I'm way more tired. Don't create this unhinged story about how you're an awful human being. Just go, looks like I'm more tired than I expected. Good thing I'm on a mini retirement. Gonna take a nap. Like, it doesn't have to be a huge ordeal.
I'd never heard this word before. I think you created it, of unrushing. And life is a hedonic treadmill. It's rush, rush, rush. It's the rat race. And then you have to invert that and talk about unrushing. Can you describe that and the construct of what it means to unrush?
Yes. If people have been in a busy, intense season, we survive that. We thrive in that by rushing. We rush through breakfast. We rush getting ready. We rush out the door. We rush to drop the kids off. We rush to get to work. We rush through lunch. We rush home. And that's how we fit this unreasonable amount of things into our day, is by rushing through it. And it keeps our cortisol high and our adrenaline. It gets us through this fatigue that we feel, so we don't feel the fatigue. But it kind of becomes a pattern, and it can be tough to shift gears real fast. And so I encourage people to practice this leading up to your mini retirement. Take one activity that you do that you normally rush through. Maybe it's breakfast, and do it slowly. Do it restfully, do it peacefully, take deep breaths while you're doing it. And sometimes people even still find themselves trying to speed up, trying to hurry through it, but catch yourself and be like, no, I'm going to unrush this. And I'm going to do this with calmness and gratitude and full breaths of air. And you start to learn how to slow a little bit. That can be scary when you're in a situation where you have to rush, because if you slow down, you might drown. And your subconscious knows that if I slow down, this avalanche is going to catch up to me and it's going to crush me. So you just run as fast as you can. But on your mini retirement, one of the ways to recover from burnout is to just practice this unrushing. Practice slowing down your daily tasks to where they feel peaceful.
Well, Jillian, you have walked us through this whole mini retirement concept. You've introduced us to some new language and really some important way to reframe and rethink about our whole career span. And I appreciate that. And like you said, today's technology and the way the workforce is today is conducive to being able to do this. And almost every issue or booby trap has an answer as long as you plan it out. So I'd like to know some of your funnest mini retirements. And then I'd love to hear more about the book and all the particulars with that and where people can find you. So what were some of your favorites?
This is so hard because I really love all of them. Because they were all so different. They were all so specific. I did 10 weeks through 10 national parks with my kiddos when they were little in a pop-up camper. And it was such a specific, beautiful moment because I never get to do that again. There's no way I can wrangle all these teenagers and junior hires in a pop-up camper with no Wi-Fi for 10 weeks. The season has passed. But even that, when I talked about at the beginning with my best friend cross-country road trip, that was an amazing trip when I was 24. I don't sleep on the frozen ground anymore. That season of life has passed. So I'm so glad that I leaned in and did that and had that experience, because it was amazing and I never want to do it again. So all of them I really loved. This last one with Tango, it was really exciting and really fun. And this is an exercise that I put in the book. I think it's really good for everyone. I think about the 80-year-old version of myself a lot. What does she want? What advice would she have for me? What is her perspective on the situation? And she was thrilled about the Tango. She's like, I want the physical stamina. I want the strength. I want the agility. I want the mental stimulation. I want the friends. I want the social life. I want the activities. I want all of those things that Tango can bring. A 1-month investment, perfect. But I think especially in your audience, well, if I do this mini retirement, would I retire later? Would it postpone? I'm already not going to be able to retire till I'm 69. Would this push me till 70? Well, I have to work a whole nother year if I take 3-month mini retirements. And I always think about, okay, so you have to retire a year later and you're 70. Think about that 70-year-old version of yourself. And if you went to him or her and said, okay, so you ended up working another year, but in exchange, when your kids were in high school or when they were young adults, you went to Italy with them for 3 months and you guys toured all of Italy. And then when your parents were still alive and around and healthy, you went hiking through Ireland with them. And before your spouse passed away, you guys did that trip to Mexico that you've always been dreaming of. So you got those 3 months experiences and we worked an extra year. Or none of those are accessible to you now. All of those seasons passed you by, but you got another year of hanging out around your house at 69. Which would feel more exciting or valuable? Which would you appreciate for decades to come?
It's like reverse engineering your life. It's being prospective instead of reactive. It's thinking about your ideal day, your ideal week, your ideal 3 months, your ideal year. We don't think ahead. We're just trying to survive the one day. And this is an intentional life. I see a huge niche for you. It's 1-to-1 with your coaching. It's 1-to-many with a coaching group. It's one to corporate America where you talk to HRs and educate them about the value, just like automatic enrollment in a 401k. What about automatic enrollment in their mini retirement program? I think you need to get out there and help change corporate America and the culture of work. So I see a lot of work for you ahead. I'm very excited about your book. And as Jackie mentioned, how can we reach you so we can get coaching, so we can talk about this more, so we can network with you?
Yeah, retireoften.com. You can find the book there to pre-order. I've got a workbook, group coaching, one-on-one, the podcast, free worksheets, like everything kind of lives at retireoften.com. And then on social media, I'm at Jillian Johnsrud. I'm not on there as much. And my newsletter is kind of random and unexpected and weird. So if you like random stuff to show up at super random intervals in your email news box, my newsletter's going to be a perfect fit for you.
No, I subscribe and I love the random thoughts. They're very inspiring. And actually, it may be the best way that a mindset newsletter is approached. Jackie, do you have any final thoughts on today's conversation? I'm so pumped.
Yeah, I am too. Jillian, you are the perfect person for this. Let me just say that. And I have pre-ordered my copy of the book. Bill, have you pre-ordered your copy?
I was fortunate to get a PDF copy, but I can order one. I also listen to the audiobook. So yes, I'm going to get out there and write a review so more people get a chance to find this book.
Yes, and I have pre-ordered a copy because I just have to have it sitting in my office. It's a beautiful book with a beautiful message told by a beautiful person. We so appreciate you joining us today, Jillian, and we hope that you will come back. When is the launch date for the book again?
September 9th.
Okay, we wish you all the best on this book, and I think that this is going to be very important to a lot of people.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
All right, Jillian, it's nice to talk to you again. I hope to see you in person again soon. Thank you for joining us today and giving us your insights on life. We'll see you next week on Catching Up to 5.
So, Bill, as you know, we cannot do this show without our amazing staff and the people that help us put this on. Our social media maven is Diana Falk, and our editor is Fritz Brazard. We love them, and they keep us going.
Yeah, Jackie, I mean, this show wouldn't have the quality it has without our folks, our peeps. And we'd also like to give you a few calls to action for the show. We love our community, and we hope you love us back. If you would like to support the show and our mission to help late starters, you can do that at Buy Me a Coffee, which is a platform that allows you to make a donation. The link is in the show notes and on the website.
Check out the show notes for resources mentioned in today's show. Also, head on over to our website at catchinguptofy.com and check out our vetted resources, partners, and affiliates for discounts and their services, because we love sharing great deals.
Please share the show with others and head on over to our Facebook community to help us grow. If you prefer video, head on over to YouTube and watch the show there. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Catching Up to 5. We would appreciate it if you could also leave us a 5-star review to help our message reach others.
And while we are financial educators that love to teach, remember that our content is for general education and information purposes only. We are not providing financial, legal, or tax advice. Always do your own research or consult a professional before making important decisions.
So, Jackie, we'll see our audience next time on Catching Up to 5. Cheers.